like a lot of things that can go wrong if you're, considered a... No, it's like you can never live it down. I mean, it was taking me this long to get rid of 1 million years BC.
Raquel Welch, the bikini goddess, the sensation of the 60s, the face on every magazine cover, the poster on every American man's bedroom wall, but behind the camera flashes, behind the dazzling praise, what was there? Do you have the courage to pay the price she once paid? Have you ever been kicked off a film set, just for refusing to bow to power? Held a newspaper that called you a washed-up relic, and swallowed your tears just to survive? Raquel endured it all. And she didn't forgive. There were 5 names who once embraced her, called her sister, then stabbed her squarely in the back. If you've ever been betrayed by those closest to you, this is your story, and believe me, you're not alone. But before we expose each traitor, you need to understand who Raquel Welch really was. Because no one is born a warrior, she was forged in the fire of betrayal, contempt, and the cold-blooded cruelty of an entire industry.
I like ideas of futility and saying, well, something's over, because, the world goes on and life goes on and...
Raquel Welch, born on September 5, 1940, in Chicago, carried both American and Bolivian blood. From Joe Raquel Tejada, she transformed into Raquel Welch, a global sex symbol, a living icon of beauty and boldness. But behind the red lipstick and silk dresses lies a dossier thick with blood, tears, and blades of betrayal. She was kicked off a film set in front of the entire crew. She sued MGM, and won. But paid the price with 6 years of being erased from Hollywood, branded as arrogant and difficult, simply because she refused to bow to tyrannical directors. She dared to play a transgender role in Myra Breckenridge, and was buried alive by the industry's silence. 4 failed marriages, miscarriages, love triangles, scandals. She was even chased with a gun in a hotel once. A kiss with a black co-star was enough to bring the wrath of white America down on her. The film set was once where she had to wield a crowbar against her own father, a childhood scar that never healed. I'm not a goddess, I'm someone who survived the hell of showbiz. And now, the very survivor, will speak and expose every person who dragged her to the bottom. First name, Bryce Donovan, director. The face of blockbuster films. But to me, he's the one who strung me up with his words, and worse, he did it in front of millions, and smiled. Have you ever been humiliated in front of an entire nation, by the same person who once applauded you? Have you ever stood on a film set, bled for a role, and then lost everything because of a single quote, a leaked story? I used to be the leading lady. Trained for 6 months for the role in Empire of Dust. And then one day, on national television, he said, Raquel Welch belongs in a museum, because she's no longer fit for cinema. One sentence. A dagger straight to the heart of my dignity. He didn't just take the role from me. He leaked the script to the press, spun a narrative that I was difficult to work with, temperamental, too old to be desirable. And what did I do? I stayed silent. Not because I agreed, but because I once believed, a woman who speaks out in Hollywood is just banging her head against a wall. But do you know what hurts more than silence? It's watching your abusers be celebrated. It's realizing the very industry you gave your life to protects those who murder with words. My biggest mistake wasn't trusting him. My biggest mistake was letting him speak without being challenged. Bryce Donovan is not alone. He represents a system of oppression I once tried to survive in. He's the emblem of an era where women were not allowed to age, speak out, or reclaim justice. If you've ever been stripped of your dignity simply for daring to grow older, to live authentically, don't turn off this video. The next person was once someone I called sister. But she stabbed me with a blade sweeter than blood. Let me know if you'd like this translated section added to a Word document. Amber Sinclair. The one who sat beside me in every interview. The one I once held close and called the sister of my soul. I trusted her. Completely. And that was the most foolish mistake of my life. Have you ever called someone family, only to find they were just waiting for the right moment you turned away, to plunge a knife into your back? Have you ever shared your spotlight with someone, only to watch them steal the light and bury you in the shadows? 1994, Velvet Crossfire. I was the lead. She was the supporting role. I thought, this will be a chance for 2 generations to shine together. But Amber didn't want to share the spotlight. She wanted the stage for herself, those cozy afternoon teas with the director. I was never invited. The whispered glances, the slick smiles, day by day, she quietly peeled the roll from my hands, like skin without drawing blood. Do you know what's the cruelest part of betrayal? Not the anger, but the false tenderness. One day, Amber looked at me, gently, warmly, and said, "You look tired. Maybe you should take some time off." Those words now echo in my head like a devil's laughter. She re-signed the contract. Took the lead role. Without telling me a word. At the premiere, Amber stood glowing under the flashlights, arm in arm with the director. And me? No invitation. No seat. Not even a name. The press claimed I screamed in the bathroom. They were wrong. I didn't scream. I went numb. Because I realized, sometimes, what kills you isn't the bullet, but the whisper from the one you loved most. Amber didn't just steal my role. She tore my trust into pieces, and walked onto that stage in silk, soaked in my blood. Have you ever given someone an opportunity, only to watch them use it to crush you beneath their feet? If the person you once held in your arms became the one who destroyed you, don't turn away, because the third one didn't need to steal a role. He just needed a pen to turn me into the unhinged lunatic for 15 years on the front page. Carlton Hayes, not a director. Not an actor. He didn't need to touch me, all he needed was a pen, and a recurring column, and he tore me apart, without spilling a single drop of blood. Have you ever woken up one morning to see your face smeared across every newsstand? Have you ever been called washed up, deranged, screaming at assistants, when you hadn't even said a word? I know that feeling, because for 15 years, Carlton wrote about me every single week. And not to praise, but to strangle me, piece by piece. Raquel Welch, past her prime. Raquel fired in meltdown. Raquel screams and throws things on set. He built narratives from so-called insider sources. From whispered lies no one ever verified. And people believed. Producers believed. The entire industry believed. And me? I was cut from 3 major projects just because they didn't want media trouble. Do you know what's the cruelest thing a pen can do? Not invent lies, but make you doubt your own truth. I didn't scream. I didn't hit anyone. But eventually, I started to wonder, maybe something is wrong with me. I lived like a ghost. And in 1985, during a custody battle, the opposing lawyers cited Carlton's articles as evidence I was unstable. There were no bruises. No tapes. Just headlines, and a man who knew he was lying, and wrote them anyway. I don't hate him for making things up. I hate him for knowing he was killing me, and sharpening his pen anyway. Have you ever lost your reputation, your job, your right to be a mother, just because someone needed a clickbait story? If you've ever been defined by someone else, by rumors, by garbage words the world took as truth, stay here. The next one didn't use words. She used a colder weapon, a smile. And she didn't want me dead. She wanted me alive, to watch myself being replaced, minute by minute. That was Melanie Price. She didn't scream. She didn't fabricate stories. She didn't write headlines. She didn't need to strike hard, because her weapon was a smile, and calculated silence. Have you ever walked onto a set, believing you were the lead, only to feel a chill as everything around you started shifting, without your knowing? I was cast in The Blood Crown, a major historical film. I was the central figure. Melanie played a supporting role, a political advisor. Everything seemed settled, but behind my back, she whispered into the director's ear every day. Raquel's hands seemed shaky. Raquel forgot her lines today. Raquel seems unstable. I had no idea those words were stacking up, forming an invisible indictment. I only realized when, at the press event for the trailer, I appeared, for exactly 6 seconds. 6 seconds. My scenes were cut. My role was diminished. Melanie? Her supporting role was upgraded to center stage. They even reused my footage, re-edited into her character. When I asked the director, he said, "We thought you were stepping back." Melanie said you needed a break. I never said that. I never stepped back. she didn't push me out of the role, she made everyone believe I walked away myself. And what chills me to this day, was how Meline smiled at me when I looked at her. No apology. No fake expression. Just a faint smile, as if everything had gone exactly to plan. She didn't want me gone. She wanted me sitting there, watching myself be replaced, scene by scene. If you've ever been erased from the very thing you bled to build, if you've ever seen the smile of someone who brought you down without saying a word, then you know who I'm talking about. But the final person, he didn't smile, didn't write, didn't whisper. He looked at me like a daughter, then erased me from my own dream. Victor Stone, not an enemy. Not a lover. He was once a savior, a rock, someone I trusted like a second father. And that's exactly why his betrayal cut the deepest. I wrote a script, The Crimson Veil, about a Victorian woman who fakes madness to escape a forced marriage and rises to become the first female publisher in England. I didn't write it to star in it. I wrote it because it was a story I had never been allowed to tell. Victor, then one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood, promised to bring it to life. Called me every day. Talked color palettes, directors, settings. He said, "You should study directing. I see a bit of Scorsese in you." I believed him. I signed the rights over to his studio. 3 months later, without warning, I was called into an office. Not for a production meeting, but to be told, the project had a new director. I was out. Victor sat there, not angry, not cold. He simply said one sentence, "Raquel, you're a great actress, but films need logic, not dreams." I was speechless. In 1988, the movie was released. But it was no longer The Crimson Veil. It had been retitled The Widow's Code. The protagonist, the woman I created to symbolize liberation, was now a deranged murderer, chained and shot like a stray dog. I quietly bought a ticket. I sat alone in the theater. By the fourth scene, I stood up and walked out. There was nothing of me in that film. No credit. No thanks. Not even a backward glance. Victor didn't need to make me bleed. He erased me, legally, cleanly, perfectly, as if I had never existed. And the most bitter part was the way he looked at me when he said, "I did it, to protect you from failure." Protect me, by stealing the dream I had carried like a pregnancy my whole life. Erasing my name from the very story I wrote with my heart. 5 names. 5 wounds. And I survived. Not because I was strong, but because I refused to let them be the ending to my story. I loved this industry, the way you love an alcoholic, with passion, but always betrayed. I don't tell this for pity. I don't need pity. I tell it, so you'll remember me, as a woman who is no longer silent. Now, the lights are out. No more red carpets. No more magazine covers. No more directors behind the camera shouting, "Action." Just me, standing in an empty room, with 5 names etched into my skin like acid burns that never heal. I was betrayed. I was humiliated. I was erased. But I'm still standing. Not because someone lifted me up, but because I rose on my own, with knees torn and bleeding. I don't need forgiveness. I don't need an audience to cry for me. I just need you to remember, behind every woman's fall is a ruthless hand someone tried to keep hidden. If your name was ever dragged through the mud by a rumor, if you were ever pushed out of the place you rightfully earned, if your voice was ever silenced by the very people closest to you, then I say to you, you are not alone. Because there was once a Raquel Welch, a woman who refused to stay silent one day longer. And if I survived that hell, then you can too. Leave the name of the person who hurt you, or the one who made you strongest. Share the story you once kept buried, the one where you were pushed aside, and if you see a part of yourself in me, share this video. Because somewhere out there, another woman is waiting for someone to speak first. I am Raquel Welch. I was brought down, but I was never defeated.